recording. Aaron, I know you should have screen sharing abilities and everything too.
Yeah, I think I can see that. It's not letting me turn on my video, but I won't take it personally. I understand.
This must be in the built-in settings that I need to change.
And that is totally fine. I don't need to be on camera.
It's always nice to see. It's always nice to see everyone's settings. Oh, you're able to screen share.
Yep, I got that.
Okay. Oh shoot, Michael.
Yeah.
Do you know where do I click on a Mac? I'm on the Mac right now. Where do I click to access?
Try see on your start video button that you get that sort of up arrow.
Yeah.
Try one of those video
settings. Okay.
I know where it is when you start a meeting, but I'm not so sure once it's going on where the.
Here I'm promoting folks to panelists right now. We've got a great deal of people tuning in. Branian, Rashida, Lindsay. And just so everyone knows, I know we do the webinar sort of as a safety precaution. So don't mind the switching over to panelists. Obviously, Aaron is taking the lead at the beginning of our meeting to share his screen. And let's see, 7:02, let's give folks 3 more minutes if you don't mind, and I'm going to also figure out this video issue.
And before we jump in, is there any time constraint I should be aware of?
I know you, Aaron, I think you had mentioned probably 30 minutes or so. If that's possible, that'd work great. I know, you know, obviously as conversations and questions from the community arise, we'll just tack that on to the end. I would like to save some time towards the end to discuss some of the other upcoming public participation opportunities and input opportunities for the community as well.
Okay. Whoops, and I think I just.
Oh, Jason, I see what you're saying. Lori, promoting. Found it. Okay. People should have access to their video now. Apologies for that. Thank you for the help, Jason. Well, let's get started right now. Aaron, would you mind not sharing the screen for 1 second, just so we can get everyone on gallery view to make introductions. So everyone, welcome to the January kickoff of our 2021-2022 term of the ANC 1A Transportation Committee. Really great to see all of you here this evening. I know on the phone line we have Commissioner Dottie Love Wade. I would love to just have a very quick introduction from the commissioners who are on the line, and then followed by the community members who are on the line. If you could just share for a brief second where you live in the commission, so we have a handle for where folks are coming from. And then we'll turn over to Aaron to share the updates on the Crosstown Phase 2 portion. So,
okay, I'll start.
Please do.
This is ANC Commissioner Dottie Love Wade. I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 1, so of course a native Washingtonian. I've served on the commission for 22 years so far, on and off. I also served as a school board member. I've lived in my home on Columbia Road for 48 years and raised my family, children, and grandchildren. I'm very invested in the committee, and I have a lot of historic knowledge that I think can help you as you navigate your way through this transportation issues.
Thank you, Dottie. And I see next on the screen is Michael.
Good evening, everyone. I'm lounging tonight, so I'm probably not going to turn on the camera. Michael Ray, ANC 1A09, so I'm the Central Parkview area. I live on Morton Street and have for the last 14 years. So, and looking forward here to my second term as a commissioner. Thanks, everyone.
And I'm just going down the line on my screen. Commissioner Clark.
Hi, yes, my name is Jason Clark. I'm ANC 1A12, kind of the bottom, let's see, number 8, shorter weight, southwest corner of our ANC. Yeah, this is my second term and looking forward to wonderful transportation options. Thank you.
And Chairman Bass.
I'll see if I can be briefer than most. Kent Bass, Chairman of the Commission. SMD is 1A08, which is the northeast. Yeah, it is the northeast corner of Ward 1 and ANC 1A. I'll leave it at that. I think most people know me.
Commissioner Brown.
Good evening. My name is Commissioner Rashida Brown. I am the commissioner for the 1A10 single member district. Moving into my fourth term, I've been living in Parkview for, almost 15 years now. And I'm excited to have DDOT present their plans before the Transportation Committee. And thanks so much, guys, for being here.
And next I see Commissioner Lehman Morales.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dieter Lehman Morales. I'm the commissioner for ANC 1A02, northwest corner of Columbia Heights. So right off 16th Street between 14th Street with Spring Place up north and Union Street on the south. This is my first term, first transportation committee meeting. So I'm excited to see what we can do, and I'm excited for this presentation.
Okay, and then very briefly, we have a number, and I'm sorry if I can't tell who's DDOT and who is a community member. I see next on the list is Tim.
Yep, hi, I'm Tim Hampton. I live on Otis Place.
And then I apologize for if I mispronounce anyone's name. Jean.
Hi, I'm Jeannie. I've lived in Adams Morgan since 2003. I walk a lot and am generally curious about other neighborhoods.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Geneva.
Good evening. My name's Geneva. I live on the 400 block of Kenyon, and I've been in Parkview for about 3 years.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Hi there, I'm Lindsay. I'm also on the 400 block of Kenyon, and I've been here for about 2 years.
Thanks for joining us. Leslie Conroy.
Hi there. I live on the 400 block of Columbia Road and formerly of ANC 1A08.
Thanks for joining us. Emily Oaksford.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Oaksford. I'm a former resident of ANC 1A, now ANC 1B. I'm also the Ward 1 back representative. Oh, and that is the Bicycle Advisory Council. Sorry.
Thank you. I see Sarah Anderson.
Hi, sorry. I'm on the DFHV Accessibility Advisory Committee. I'm the vice chair, and I've lived in DC 10 years. a little bit of
Thank you.
everything. Sorry.
No, please. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course.
And then I'm looking at, I believe, George Brannion from DDOT.
Yes, good evening, everyone. This is George Brannion. I manage the active transplant to school pedestrian issues. And I'm here to support Aaron Goldbeck in the presentation, even though Aaron is not on my team. He is one of several planners in the Planning and Sustainability branch or division who are managing the development of a bike lane project. So I'm excited to be here to support him and to see you all. Thanks.
Thanks so much, George. And just so you know, you had a little bit of a robot internet delay. So if you hear any snickering, it might be coming from people who are in attendance. So thank you.
I'm not a robot.
Thank you so much for being here, everyone. It's great to see such a large group of folks. So to start off, I put the agenda link and the meeting materials link, which are up in a Google Drive for everyone in the chat. So if you haven't had a chance to look at those, I'd suggest pulling those up right now. And so for the first portion, for the sake of Aaron and George's time, I wanted to kick off with a presentation updates from Aaron on the second phase of the Crosstown Project. So Aaron, feel free to take it away.
Okay, well, once again, my name's Aaron Goldbeck. I am a transportation planner at DDOT. Mostly I work on capital bike share and dockless scooter issues. This is sort of one of my first big bike lane projects. So very excited to be here. And I'm going to start with a quick recap of this project for those of us who weren't here at the initial meeting. And then we'll dive right in because there's a couple of pretty specific questions that I have for the community that I'm hoping to get, decisions made and feedback on this evening. So let me see, I'm going to go over to my screen. So, as a reminder, oh, wait, I'm going to share my screen and then you all be able to see it. There we go. So for those of you who are learning about this project for the first time, this is sort of the second phase of the Crosstown Project. Crosstown is an effort to make a stronger east-west and now north-south connection in the area, upgrading streets, improving safety, enhancing connectivity, especially for pedestrians, bicyclists, scooterists, or whatever we call them. So the first phase of this project you're probably familiar with. It's the protected lane on Irving that runs north of the hospital center. We're very happy with how that went. So we're now taking that to its second phase, which started with this. And this is a very zoomed out picture, and it's a little hard to read because north is to the right and south is to the left, which is, I know, it's strange, but you can see Grant Circle there on the far right side of your screen and Kenyon on the far left side of your screen. So this is what was developed back in 2017, 2018, when these projects were first initially studied and proposed and when the first round of community input was solicited at that time. And what we heard from the community at that time is you're interested in upgrading the bike lanes on Park Place and on Warder so that they are protected by the parked cars, and adding a bunch of street trees to those streets. I brought these plans back in November to ANC 1A, got a lot of really helpful feedback, which allowed us to narrow in on specific design elements and start to move the plans forward. So the phase that we're at right now is we are trying to wrap up what is called the concept plan phase, or 30% of the design. We're about 30% of the way to having a completed design. So fairly early on, but we're starting to get a pretty good sense of what we want to build here. And our goal is to go to a 60% design late spring, early summer, come back to you at that time for additional sort of fine-grained feedback on really sort of like in the weeds kind of small bore stuff. And then have a 100% done plan by the winter so that we can break ground and build this in the spring of 2022, just as soon as weather permits. So we've expanded the scope of the project a little bit. So now if you look on your right, you can see a more conventionally oriented map with north at the top and south at the bottom. I've highlighted the streets that we are going to be working on. So 5th Street down into Park Place all the way down to Kenyon. So connecting Grant Circle essentially to the new protected bike lane that we built last year. And then building another protected bike lane north on Warder all the way up to New Hampshire. As part of this, we've learned from the community that there is interest in making Park Road between Georgia Avenue and Park Place a one-way. And there's interest in looking at extending the protected bike lane on Kenyon. You know, it stops at Warder now, and I have some drawings of what it would look like if we took it all the way to Georgia Avenue. So that is what we were going to get into this evening. So I'm going to switch over to some drawings that I have, and we're looking for some feedback. I think probably the place to start is going to be on, let's see, let's start on Park Place. Just gonna take this to, okay, so we're gonna start at Park Place and Rock Creek Road Northwest, and we're gonna move our way south. So the first big question that we have is, what do we want this facility to look like? So what I'm going to share with you first is a rendering. Hopefully you're able to see that. You should see a little sort of Photoshop picture of what the protected bike lane would look like with the tree box on the right-hand side, which it's just showing grass, but we will plant trees there. And then you can see the parking protection for that bike lane on the left-hand side. Is that visible to everyone? Great. Okay. So this is sort of our plan A. This is what we had come with at the previous meeting and had discussed, and this is what the technical drawings I'll show you in a moment are going to show. But sort of the first decision point that we're interested is there was some interest in instead of having this be parking protected, what if we instead use that space for a pedestrian path? So now I'm showing a rendering of what this would look like with the pedestrian path. So this eliminates all of the parking on the entire stretch of Park Place. So there would be no new parking added on to the side bordering the old Soldier's Home. And what we would have there instead is a barrier protected at grade walking path. Now, this is not a sidewalk per se. To build a sidewalk here, we would need to embark upon a much longer planning process and have a much longer construction process, which is beyond the scope of what this project was envisioned as. So this is sort of like the pedestrian facility that we can do sort of in the short term. And, you know, potentially in the long term, it could be upgraded into a more conventional sidewalk. So I want to emphasize that this is at the same level as the street. There's no curb to step up. There, you know, would be barriers and protective striping. But, you know, in the spirit of full transparency, not everybody at DDOT is completely sold on this. There are potential ADA concerns and there are potential safety concerns here that we have not fully fleshed out. But this is something that had come up in the last meeting. So I wanted to bring this to you to see what your take on this was, see if this is something worth pursuing. I can't guarantee that we would be able to build this, but if you're interested in me pushing this forward, that's something I can do. But I wanted to first check in and see if this is something that there was an appetite for, or if we wanted to go with, and I'm just going to switch back to the sort of Plan A version where we just have the protected bike lane with the parking. So I'm going to pause here and answer any questions and see if I can get a sense of where the community is with this. And
Aaron, if you want to maybe stop screen sharing, I know we have a number of raised hands. I can't see them all right now.
okay.
Yeah, Commissioners Brown, Bass, and Lindsay.
Yeah, I think for me, this, I guess this would be the second option with the parking on the, what is that, the east side of the Park Place. I mean, with the Soldiers Home, you know, all gated up, I don't really see the purpose of the pedestrian lane. Folks, to me, can use the opposite side of the street and use the sidewalk. I agree of the, you know, DDOT's concerns about safety issues and ADA concerns. I don't really see the kind of the connection in terms of like, you know, what are the benefits for pedestrians, but I do see the benefits for parking, especially since we have that issue within my single member district, but also around Parkview.
And I'm going to be sort of taking notes as people are talking, so just so you know.
I guess I could go next unless this is being moderated. I'm going to echo Commissioner Brown. I do fully understand the desire to have a walking path or a jogging path around the Soldiers Home, and I think that would be great if we could achieve that in the future. I do have serious concerns, though, if there's no change in grade. I know we have one person right now who has been riding their dirt bike on almost an 8-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week schedule because they're so bored in the pandemic. And I know that we're going to get scooters and people that don't respect a barrier between the two areas. And so I am concerned with people being hit. That said, I know that we're also in a position with the ANC where we're seeing an increase in property owners wanting to convert single family homes into 2- and 3-unit row homes. And we have a case down on Manor Place right now where we're unfortunately in opposition to the case because they can't provide off-street parking requirements. And if we're going to perhaps take some of the parking away for bulb outs for trees, which I support, and if we're in a position where we've gotten to opposing development because of the parking requirements, which is also a reality, I don't see how we can, you know, and it's difficult because we're constantly having to make difficult decisions. In a real world, in other parts of the city, we would be able to have both and not make a choice between one or the other. But right now, I would opt for the parking, protecting the bike lanes, especially if it's all on the same grade. If we find that there's no demand for the parking when DDOT has funds, we could then move that into a raised sidewalk. Right? I mean, if right now what DDOT does on the east side of Park Place is a low-cost solution, then that won't preclude us with moving forward with whatever the data shows us with the demand for parking.
Aaron, I wanted to read out, well, Geneva and Lindsay both have their hands up. Are you able to see the questions in the chat?
I also asked to be recognized.
Commissioner Love-Wade?
Yes, I just wanted to concur with Commissioners Bates and Brown. That's a very dangerous situation, asking for a pedestrian strip. Having lived in 400 block of Kenyon Street, my parents lived there until their passing. It's already a dangerous road. It's dark and not lit. It's just bad accidents waiting to happen to put any type of pedestrian stripping along that area. And also, in the back of my mind, I do think there's a major development coming with Soldiers Home, and that anything that's happening around that perimeter would be impacted. So it would seem like you'd be throwing away good money for bad. That's just a few of my thoughts on it. And I'll always support parking for residents.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm not sure if anybody else was next in line, though. I just wanted to say I saw a question in the chat about the ADA concerns, and what was raised to me was that for a facility like this, it was unclear how we would have, you're supposed to have a raised surface where there's a crosswalk, so somebody with a visual impairment can detect it with a cane or with their foot, and it was unclear if or how we could implement that with this kind of facility. So that was something that there's more research being done on, but that was the specific ADA concern, is that it was unclear if we could make this facility at grade compliant with safety requirements for individuals with visual impairments. So,
And
okay.
Lindsay, are you able to hop off? Thanks.
Yeah. Hi. So, I mean, I think my concern with this, I like the idea of a pedestrian path, particularly if you're going to move the bike lane to the east side of the street, because I run on that street regularly. And right now, because our sidewalks are so dang narrow, I have to run in the bike lane to be able to get around people with dogs, to get away from people because of COVID. And so having that extra space is really critical. And so for me, it would actually be better just to leave the bike lane where it is, because I think it's functioning as far as I can tell. But if you are going to move it to the other side of the street, I think having the pedestrian path would be very helpful for a lot of the ways that people use it with respect to running and walking.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that before we keep moving?
Yeah, a couple more hand raises. Geneva and then Tim.
Yeah. Erin, I just wanted to say thank you for presenting the pedestrian lane as an option and taking that into consideration. I also run in the neighborhood and use the bike lane similar to what Lindsay was discussing, since it's so crowded on the sidewalks. I'm wondering if there is an option to leave things as they are now. I think it kind of works well for the neighborhood. I don't really see any traffic or bike issues when I'm on Park Place. So I'm wondering if that's a possibility.
Well, I'm sort of hesitant to, I mean, not doing anything is always an option. We call that the no build option. But in this case, we would also not be building out the tree boxes, because to build out the tree boxes, we're moving the curb lane on the side that has parking now. So, you know, if we're going to leave the travel lanes where they are, that would preclude making really any of the changes that we're interested in making. So, you know, tree boxes, crosswalks, all that would be, we wouldn't do anything.
If there are upgrades, I would just strongly hope that some consideration is given to pedestrians and runners that use that space. I'd hate to see it just turn into a bike and parking lane.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then Erin, I wanted to also raise Commissioner Brown's comment up, or Commissioner Brown, you can just share, please. It's related.
Yeah, I just put a comment in the chat box that, you know, regardless if we go with a pedestrian or parking lane, on the east side, I think the inclusion of crosswalks would be important to address some of the safety concerns from pedestrians traveling from east to west, particularly since, you know, we don't have street lights anywhere between Rock Creek Church and Kenyon.
Yeah, I hear you. And we do want to have those crosswalks in regardless of whether there's the pedestrian path or not. And I think a little bit later on in the design process, we want to talk about stop signs. I don't think stop lights are going to be an appropriate treatment here, but and we're not quite at the point where we can talk about the stop signs today, unfortunately. But that is something that we very much have our eye on for the next round of the design process.
And also slow down traffic, because we have a real issue with speed on Park Place.
Oh yeah, definitely. And either design is going to have a traffic calming effect because of the reduction in lanes. So that is definitely something we're interested in as well. So let me actually show you what this is going to look like from a sort of technical perspective, unless there's anybody else who wants to weigh in on the parking.
Tim,
versus
did you want to go before we move on?
I think you're on mute.
Muted, Tim.
I just want to say real quick, I think the pedestrian path would be an amazing thing to add. And I walk around the old soldiers home every day. So I know that there's on the other three sides, there's always people walking either for transportation or for fitness. And this would sort of enclose the last side of that and make it like a full amenity. But I understand there's a lot of things to balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna sort of switch over to a bird's eye view here. So you can see now we're looking at Park Place, and once again we have done this fun thing with the orientation where now the right side of your screen is north, the left side of your screen is south. We're going to be moving south as we go through this. So we are looking at Rock Creek Church and Park Place. So let me see if I can advance this. And now we're looking at a particular point of interest that we had here about the sort of intersection of Park Place and Park Place. I think Park Place Major, Park Place Minor, I think. So, this is something I want to take special attention to call out here, that we have reduced this lane here to basically the narrowest that we possibly can, the narrowest that the turning radius would accommodate the class of vehicles that are rated for these streets. So this is, I think, a significant safety enhancement for this particular intersection. You can see the new crosswalk there. And this, I think, would be probably the largest single tree pit that we're going to be able to deliver on this corridor. So I think we're going to see the most potential for new foliage here. And before I continue on the tree pits, I should say that you're going to be seeing locations for tree pits on here. These are not final. We have done a first pass, but installing trees is very challenging because there's a lot of stuff happening underneath the sidewalk that we have to be very, very careful about, utilities, water, all kinds of other underground infrastructure. So we have a whole consulting team working on this project now. They've done a first pass, and they believe that we can accommodate around 10 new street trees on Park Place and another 10 street trees on Warder. So we think that that's a pretty significant improvement. The precise locations, though, are not final yet. So everything you're seeing here is what we're aiming for, but when we get more information about what is happening under the ground, things might slide around a little bit. So any comments on this? And do I need to stop sharing so we can see the chat?
If you do, Aaron, it helps us see everyone's faces
Okay, cool.
and hand raised. So sure. And Commissioner Bass, I would say let the comment. So if you want to go first.
Oh, my only question is, first of all, I love this because I've been advocating for this for a while. My only real question is, since you're at the 30%, can I realistically expect this proposal to be in the 100% and shovel in the dirt, or is this more of a pie in the sky kind of offering? I know you said the other ones maybe haven't been settled yet, but I'm just kind of curious about how set this one may or may not be.
Oh boy. All of this is subject to change. I'm pretty confident about this. I haven't seen any real pushback on this. So I'm as confident as I can be. I'm sorry, I can't be any more sure than that. It's tough to be sure on these things. Okay. So let's keep moving south, unless there's anything else right now. I don't see any hands.
Commissioner Brown and Lindsay, Oh, if you don't have anything, if you wouldn't mind just taking down the raised hand so I could try to help moderate here. I don't think Aaron can see everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I've got.
Emily has her hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, I will echo that, narrowing that intersection of Park Place, and Park Place is very important. The more trees, the better. But I did have a question. So will the whole of 5th Street be the bike lane and travel lane will be swapped all the way up to the circle then, or will you do that later? Or
Yeah, and I didn't really go into that because of, a portion of that is in ANC 4C. But if you want, what I can do is we can just go north real fast, and you can just take a quick look. So, oops, now we're going north. And I'm gonna zoom out.
Okay.
All right, so we're back here, and then it's just going to continue just with the same design until we hit Grant Circle.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I just was making sure that part hasn't really changed since you covered it last time. So
no,
thanks.
No, yeah. Okay. All right, so you can see, and I'm going to take us south to the intersection with Kenyon. You can see, we've got these new crosswalks. We've got the tree pits called out where we would like to see those in the final draft of the plans. We've got these landscaping and green infrastructure features, especially at intersections where they can add additional protection to pedestrians who are crossing the intersecting roads. And then we have some changes that we want to make here to the Kenyon and Park Place intersection, where we have gotten a lot of really helpful feedback on the Crosstown Phase 1 changes, and we want to recognize that this has not been an ideal configuration for everybody. There's been some learning. I'm going to see if I can rotate this. There we go. That looks better. Okay, so now we're actually looking at this thing with north on the top of the screen. So we would like to make some changes here to this section. We received some feedback, like I said, from members of the community, and we got some very good ideas. Primarily being changing the signal phasing, and I don't want to get too technical here because it is very technical. But the question of whether we could change the signaling essentially so that the cars and bikes could be moving at the same time, because right now what happens is that the bikes have their own dedicated signal phase where everybody has a red light essentially except for bicycle traffic. And we actually have found a way that we can get the bicycles and the cars going at the same time, which is going to ease congestion here. But the change that we have to make is we have to get back in there and restripe things. So the condition that you have now is in the light gray. And what the changes we want to make are in the darker black, and they sort of sit on top. So what you can see is on Kenyon Street, as you're approaching westbound, there's two straight ahead lanes. And the one on the left is straight or left. What we want to do is we can make that southernmost lane on the westbound approach, we can make that a dedicated left-hand turn, which allows us to change the signal phasing, essentially, so the bikes and cars are going at the same time. So all of this is going to increase the whole efficiency of this intersection. It should really reduce the congestion. You can't see it here, but this is going to involve restriping chunks of Kenyon going east back towards the hospital center to narrow this down to the one through lane. So it's going to have the effect of sort of taking the traffic and putting it in a funnel before it reaches the intersection, so that the straight ahead traffic is sort of nicely lined up going into the intersection. And we've got this now this dedicated left turn. So the traffic engineers think this is really going to help fix a lot of the issues that were sort of created by the recent changes. So that's the big update I have here. Traffic engineers are pretty excited about this, as excited as they get about things. So I wanted to check in, see if there was any additional feedback here, but this is sort of this is something that we would very much like to do to try and improve conditions here at this intersection and further downstream down Kenyon.
Aaron, I know this is going to have many questions surrounding it. So let's start off. I saw in order, I saw Lindsay, Commissioner Brown, Emily, and Geneva. and Leslie. So Lindsay, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just want to say this looks great. I think if we're able to do this change in traffic flow, it will help immensely at that intersection. So thank you for bringing that forward. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Brown. I echo Lindsay, but I have a kind of a technical question, I guess. How far back does it go? You said like it goes, and we've all been saying that it goes back to the hospital centers, but can you kind of give a picture of like where exactly the start?
Let me, I'm gonna just go to my primary planning tool here, which is Google Maps. Basically the furthest back that it can go is at the Kenyon and Irving and Hobart split right here. So let's see if I've dropped this in the right place. Yeah, so that it's called a taper is the technical term for what we're doing here. It would begin here, which is as soon as it could begin. It wouldn't have any effect to do it any further back because the traffic splits here. But by beginning the lane narrowing process here and then sorting everybody into a straight ahead lane on the right and this dedicated left turn lane, it'll have that effect I described before. So it will begin right here where Irving splits with Hobart and becomes Kenyon. And hopefully I've explained that in a clear way.
Yes, thank you.
Then Emily and then Geneva.
Yeah, so I think thanks for that. That seems like quite, definitely a thoughtful process in reorganizing the intersection. My one concern is that for southbound bicyclists, they'll probably, with the redesign, if they get stopped at that stoplight at Kenyon, they're going to want to kind of queue at the north side of the intersection to make and cross with cars when cars get the signal, whether or not they have like a dedicated signal. And just kind of two things. I think I wonder if this project could improve that sidewalk, that northeast corner a little bit and add space to that so that there could be queuing space to allow that extra movement that will happen like organically, whether that's a desired by DDOT or not. And if that was kind of considered in the design,
Yeah, I mean, I think we could take a look at something like a bike box for the southbound traffic now. We're talking about coming down Park Place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no change to that signal. So the southbound traffic coming down Park Place, that continues as it is today. So we don't anticipate significantly different behavior for any mode for car or bike or pedestrian for that matter. But in terms of, making sure there's adequate queuing space, that's something I can make sure we take a look at.
Well, just because it is at that intersection where the bike lane switches from the east side to the west side. And it looks like you all are trying to get the crossing movement to happen on the south side of the intersection, but if bikes are stopped at the light anyways, they might want to travel with the cars.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, okay. That's a good, yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Geneva.
Thank you very much for taking into consideration all these issues and coming up with a plan to ease traffic on that corner. I wanted to ask if maybe you haven't gotten there yet, but any considerations into changing the corner of Warder and Kenyon? Maybe that's next in your presentation.
That's coming up next, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Leslie.
Thank you, Erin. I feel like all that you've presented so far has been extremely clear, and it's been very easy to comment on specific items. One question that I have regarding the changing of the signaling at Kenyon and Park Place is with the dedicated left turn lane, which I think is like the perfect solution, will the bikes on Kenyon heading west, will there be a conflict between a green light for the bikes and a green light for the left turn? Basically, are we setting up bikes to get dinged right there?
No.
Okay.
But good question. You know, I want to be mindful of our time. I could show you the the traffic signal phasing diagram and sort of walk through it in more detail, but that would
no, a verbal is fine,
okay.
As long as those will just work independently, or I just want to keep that in mind.
Yes, no, I can assure you we're going to make sure that there is no conflict between those left turning vehicles and bicycle traffic going in the counterflow direction.
Perfect, thank you.
And then Commissioner Ray, I know you had your hand raised. Was it answered?
Sort of, when you get to the next intersection, Aaron, I am going to be curious about the turn going north on Water, because it seems like we are giving it quite a lot of space, and I just don't, and I'm assuming you have some numbers to back up why it's so long, and you're going to do that next, I hear, so I'll just get it out of the way now.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me pull that up next. All right. Sorry, just a second. I gotta rotate this back the other way. Okay. So now we are going to start heading west down Kenyon. We're going to start moving towards George Avenue. All right.
Aaron, we're not seeing a screen share, just so you know.
How about now? So you should be looking at the same intersection. Okay, but now we can see a little bit further down Kenyon. So we can see the 400 block here. So we're trying to do a couple of things here. We're trying to, you know, add back in full-time parking. This would not be rush hour restricted parking. And what we found that we could do safely was add 5 spaces here, just past that first alleyway, as I show you. Now, unfortunately, where the page split is, it's splitting kind of at that second alley as we move west on Kenyon. And so to show you the Warder intersection, I have to flip over to the next page. But so that's what that looks like. But let's stay focused on this for a moment. So I pushed to get this in here, and the traffic engineer folks really would prefer this parking not be here. They really we had some spirited discussions about whether this should be, you know, RPP or whether this should be rush hour restricted. They do feel that rush hour restricted would be better for the overall traffic flow and, you know, ease of drivers getting through the neighborhood. And they cautioned me that, you know, if we include this parking here full time, they do expect there to be some congestion on this block, especially around the PM rush hour. So they wanted me to bring this to you with those caveats so that you can make an informed decision. I could not get more than 5 spaces included here. And the reason for that is the turning volumes on Kenyon. This is turning north onto Warder, and I can pull up the numbers if you want to see them. But during, again, the PM rush hour, there are enough people making that right-hand turn that they felt like they needed all of this room, essentially, you know, from the alley here, even, well, actually well before the alley there, I should say, you know, it's a big chunk of the block. They felt like they needed all of that space for cars turning right to Q. Otherwise, they told me it was going to back all the way up into the Kenyon and Park Place intersection, which would not be acceptable for them. So this is sort of a bit of a compromise. It's what we've got. I'm just interested to hear what the reaction is to this. If this is what the community supports, I don't think I'm going to be able to argue for any additional full-time parking here. So yeah, what do you think? And I'll turn this off.
Neighbors on the 400 block here, Geneva and Lindsay and Commissioner Brown.
So on the block, then, would it be some spots are rush hour and some spots are permanent?
No, in this configuration, there would be no rush hour restricted parking whatsoever. It would all be, or it would really kind of whatever type parking you want. I assume like an RPP style or even an ROP, we could do that. it's sort of up to you, but it would not go away during the AM or PM rush hour.
But then there'd be no parking at all between the alley and Warder, and then on the backside between the alley and Park.
That's the trade-off. Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think I have to think about it, but I do have a question. Right now, there's a no parking sign on between the alley and Park that says no parking anytime, but cars are parked there all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't give anyone tickets. I think people just don't understand what the rules are right now. So I just mentioned that.
Yeah. Okay. We can take a look at that. It's enforcement during the pandemic has been sort of hard to do.
And I'm on the Commissioner Brown, if you want to go, and then Lindsay
Lindsay
and
can go.
Leslie. Okay.
Yeah, I think that will help traffic flow a lot. Things already back up well beyond that intersection in the afternoons right now, and it's certainly decreased traffic flow than usual. So I think I would be willing to give up that parking, but quite honestly, I don't use it. But I know there are several of our neighbors that do rely on that parking because of the way they split up, like somebody said earlier, the row houses are becoming like multiple units instead of just single family homes. And so parking has become more of a premium here. And I think if you extend and take away more parking even on the other side of Kenyon, it's just going to be even trickier for folks.
Yeah, and a lot of the neighbors are pushing for the elimination of RPP. So we, passed a resolution to the ANC to lift up that concern of neighbors.
Just to follow up on Lindsay real quick, that the backup has really become almost unbearable. So I'm not sure I see another option if we take away rush hour parking rather than getting rid of parking on either end.
And I also did want to highlight Commissioner Base's question about west of Warder. Would parking on north side also be RPP or still rush hour restricted?
That would be RPP actually. So let's maybe this will help us sort of think this through. So now we're getting into sort of the final big question. I said 30 minutes. I was wrong. This is the last thing though. So this is our concept for continuing the protected bike lane all the way to Georgia Avenue. It would go on the south side. And I've looked into transitioning it to the north side, and to preempt any questions on that. Am I sharing my screen? No, you can't see what I'm looking at. Hang on. Here we go. Okay, now you can see. So this is what it looks like if we extend the protected bike lane. It's still on the south side. To preempt any questions, I did look into having it transition to the north side. But what that would entail is giving the cyclists a dedicated signal phase at the Warder intersection. So you'd be adding a huge delay for the signal phase there. So we'd essentially have to build in a new phase for people to cross one way and then cross the other way. So it created sort of unacceptable congestion to do that. So bike lane on the south side for that reason. We go down to the single travel lane, but we get this full-time RPP parking or whatever style parking the ANC would support on the north side. So you'd have a elimination of approximately 30 parking spaces on the south side of Kenyon where they are now, including one accessibility parking space, and we would have to figure out how to accommodate that resident who has that disabled spot. We have not reached out or begun that because we wanted to get your feedback first before we pursued this any further. We wanted to make sure this was something that there was going to be support for. And this, whoops, went the wrong way. And so this would then end here at Georgia Avenue. And that would be the end of the facility as we have planned it so far. So this is big. This would be a pretty significant change. So I am going to stop sharing once again and open it for discussion.
Yeah, I want to hear from residents before I speak.
Yeah, Leslie and also Commissioner Ray too.
Thank you. I have a question about the block we were previously discussing, but I think it relates to the slide you just showed. I'm concerned about the vehicle maneuvers, where we're essentially asking from the hospital center, narrowing down to the one straightforward lane, and then we're saying, and then shift basically a lane over because there's parked cars, and sometimes when you're driving, and let's be honest, like on this road, it's sometimes at a high rate of speed. It's a little hard to tell whether that's a parked car or a car in travel. I just see this that kind of collecting more like delivery vehicles, so I'm wondering, without just shooting it down, I'm wondering, has the south side been considered as an option for the car parking? Because then the straightforward cars could just keep continuing west. And I know that the right-hand turn gets a little dicey, but I just wanted to see if that had already been considered by your team.
That's a good question. Not really, to be honest, because if I understand you correctly, you're saying you have the bike lane, so you have the sidewalk, and then you have the bike lane, and then you have the parking on the south side.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it's a 2-lane bike lane, and it would be buffered with these barriers, that it would be a fairly significant. If you park there and you get out of your car, it's kind of challenging to cross a facility like that, especially if you have any sort of mobility impairment. So
Right.
I don't think we've taken a look at it for that reason. We don't tend to build parking protected bike lanes in that fashion. When we build parking protected bike lanes, they tend to be only one direction, and they don't have the barriers. I'm not sure if it's something we could build, because there's all kinds of rules about this stuff. But it is something I could look into.
Yeah, I'm
maybe
just throwing
kind
it
of
out
facility.
as an option, and also seeing in the chat. I think that if everyone always followed the rules at all times, everyone drove the correct speed at all times, everyone was paying attention at all times, this plan would work fine and we'd say great. But just understanding delivery drivers, Uber drivers, etc., I feel like that they could just, one car parked where they shouldn't blows up this whole plan. And I could just see that rippling through the rest of the grid. But no, that's not a unique to here problem. But thank you for considering this.
Okay, moving forward, Commissioner Ray, and then Sarah and Tim.
Great. Thanks again. Just to confirm, then, because I really want to make sure I understand this, that between Warder and Georgia Avenue, the parking that would remain would be parking all the time. So we would have one parking lane, one travel lane, one bidirectional bike lane.
Correct.
And what's the thought on? And again, I'll just say generally, I have told you this directly. I am supportive of this idea. I am sure we are going to hear, we're going to hear from people. There's no getting around that. But one of the things I do think we're going to hear from the bike people is going to be ending this at Georgia Avenue kind of dumps, cyclists off on one of the most dangerous roads I think that DC has currently. So what is the thought behind, ending this right there at Georgia, and how we can sort of mitigate that concern?
Well, I to be perfectly honest with you, we really haven't gotten that far yet. We kind of wanted to throw this out there and see what the response was before we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to do once we get to Georgia, because I agree, it is not an ideal place to just say, okay, and now you're on your own, good luck getting to, Target. I think we would really need to take some time to think about that intersection. personally, I think that if we've gone as far as Georgia Avenue, we should at least go to Sherman or 11th Street. I mean, if we got to 11th Street, then we've connected up to the whole, bike network. And I think then we really be delivering some value, but we have to put some limits on it somewhere. So I think this is a first pass, and what you're seeing at Georgia should in no way be construed as our final thought on the matter. And I think if we feel like there's enough support for this, that we continue iterating on this design, we'll be really focusing on addressing those specific issues.
So this just confirms my assertion from the time you introduced the original plan that it would go all the way through Ward 1, ANC 1A, and it would destroy residential parking in its wake and have such a negative impact on our neighborhoods. So to 14th Street we go. And I told you that in the beginning when you said it was a pilot project, that the plan would take it all the way to 14th Street, and residents be darned. So that's all I have to say on it. You guys work it out. But it's, I saw it coming, and I think most of you did too, and that was the original plan.
Yeah, and I agree with Commissioner Love Wade. I mean, this is disheartening for me because there's so many, that is those are the blocks that you see a lot of long-term residents who are seniors, and to, take away their parking like that is just absolutely, it's disrespectful. When we last talked about this, I mean, I thought the thinking was that it wouldn't move past the 400 block, even though I knew you probably would come back and try to coordinate beyond that block. You're talking about Georgia Avenue, but then, why would it stop at Georgia Avenue? I don't really understand kind of the thinking or the intent. So, I mean, I would be opposed to it. A lot of the neighbors are opposed to it just based on what they've seen on the 400 block. You're just going to get a lot of angry folks, and, to take away their parking like that.
Well, they did it on 14th Street, and they'll do it on every single block that they don't get enough pushback. And it looks all beautiful on paper, and it sounds oh so wonderful until you have to live through it every day, until you cannot find anywhere to park, when you are not physically able to ride a bike and you must have a vehicle. When you have a family and bikes are not an option for you to take your children anywhere, then it may start to come home to you at how very serious and impactful this is on the very quality of life for the people who live here and pay taxes here, who have made this their home. It's a very serious issue. And the bike movement, I understand your zest and zeal, but you zip through our neighborhoods and leave your non-dust in our wake. I'm just speaking for the residents of this community when no one else will. I will always be that voice who reminds you that people are impacted by the decisions that you make in your effort to move traffic. People. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to make sure we have a lot of hands raised. Sarah Anderson, you were one of the first I saw have your hand raised.
Hi. So I appreciate the opportunity to see this presentation, and I think that's great. I just wanted to express concern / alarm that the person with the handicap space has not been consulted or brought in, or it is what it sounded like you said. If this person has been made part of it, awesome.
No, we're not at that phase yet.
So that worries me that it's going to be kind of a done deal before it gets to someone. I hear you. If that doesn't happen, great. But that would be my concern, that this person will be consulted after all of the thinking has been thought and all of the contract money or whatever has been expended. That's just, I appreciate your emphatic shaking of your head, but that's just a big concern. And I will also echo the protected bike lanes, while fantastic, do have a significant impact on the disability community. And so I would really like for them to be included.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I've lost track of everyone. I see Tim, and then Emily, and I know, Aaron, is this the end of your presentation?
Yeah,
that
is
long.
everything I have prepared. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I didn't get drawings of Warder in time for this meeting, but Warder is essentially, the same as Park from what you've seen in terms of the overall design. So as soon as I do get those, I will share them with the committee. But yeah, at this point, I'm available until you kick me out. So
Feedback. Okay, let's keep moving.
Sure, Barczyk, just one thing. Aaron, what is your timeline for making determinations? I know you got to go back to your team. Can you kind of walk us through that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we want to have made as many decisions as we can. And I've already gotten quite a bit of very valuable information here in this meeting. So I think what we're going to be able to do is move the design forward for different streets, sort of along different tracks. So we actually have different teams working on the designs for the different streets. I don't need to get into all the details of how we manage the workflow here, but essentially I think we've got what we need to move Park to the next phase. And I think that as soon as I can share the Warder stuff, since Warder and Park are very similar, I think we're probably going to be pretty good on that. I think Kenyon obviously is going to take more time for us we have some significant issues to work through. So what I'm thinking is I will probably be able, with a little bit of additional consultation, be able to move Park and Warder onto the next phase, and Kenyon seems less clear, and I think that we'll circle back with the team. But that's sort of what I expected to get out of this, because what we are proposing on Kenyon is a very significant change. So I think we're still on track to have a next round in the late spring, April, May, on Park and Warder, and Kenyon is just, still a lot of things to consider here. Is that, I know that's a little bit squishy, but I think that's the best I can do for you right now before I talk to my boss.
Thank you. I wanted to go to Emily and Tim.
Oh, Tim, you were told to go first beforehand. I'll let you go.
Okay, I'll just go. Keep things moving. Thank you. I first of all wanted to say thank you very much for extending the bike lane further along Kenyon so that it can make some other connections and actually be useful as a network. We have about 30 total transportation deaths in DC a year. About a third of those are cyclists, and I know having a protected bike lane network is the #1 thing to reduce the cyclist piece of that. And so, having the street go a little further and connect makes a really big difference. I know, I bike, and my kids bike to and from elementary school, and a number of other families and grown-ups on our block do as well. So I know a lot of people use that and need a bike network. in the neighborhood, not just passing through it. I wanted to real quick, Lindsay, you were saying about people parking in the wrong spots and stopping up traffic and making congestion. And I was thinking that sometimes one thing we can do for that is to add some of those flexi posts along with not just the flexi posts, but those little zebra black and white concrete things to close in that area. And sometimes that can both stop people from parking in spots where they shouldn't and blocking up traffic, and also make it a little safer for pedestrians crossing. So that's just one thought that jumped to my mind about that. And last, I didn't see the lane widths on any of these, and I just want to say that I hope especially on Park Place where there's a major speeding problem, that we can keep the lane widths as small as possible. 10.5 feet I think would be great. Otherwise, we're going to continually have the problem, like Lindsay was saying, people aren't going to follow what they're supposed to. But if we make the lanes suggest, oh, this is a neighborhood street and you should drive like that, then they'll do it. Thank you very much, or more likely. Thank you.
Yeah, just on the lane width piece, I can just say that, yeah, we're not quite there yet. That's going to be the next round of iteration on the design, but we will be coming back with that next time.
So I am a little concerned about having the cycle track just for the stretch between Georgia and Warder, just because Georgia is a very dangerous street, and considering that the bikes won't opt to use Georgia, then they'll be, stuck with riding with traffic along Kenyon to Sherman or to 11th Street and beyond. I think when the Crosstown cycle track was originally proposed, or originally envisioned in the Move DC plan, there were lines across the map. Of course, those lines could change, but I know they were more along Columbia and Harvard Street, and I'm just a little concerned to see like it go incrementally down the road if there's not a better, more holistic approach that can be taken in the long run. And talking about signal and delay and concern that residents might have if they see the short-term approach, that then it becomes really unpopular, and then we kind of like lose the bigger battle, or I mean, it's not a battle actually, but it's just the bigger safety issue, which is to get all the way, all the way connected from the Brooklyn Metro Station to the Columbia Heights Metro Station, right? Like that's what we want to do in a safe and protected way. So I think looking at opportunities to maybe if the traffic has to go farther south on Park Place to get onto Columbia or Harvard, looking at the new things that DDOT is doing with the car-free lanes with the bike and bus might be ways to take advantage of sharing space. Tim, I didn't mean to have you go before me and say something opposite, and I don't want to. I'm not anti-bike lane by any chance, but I am just a little concerned about that. About if we're going to choose Kenyon, we need to make sure that that's the route that we're going to go all the way. Otherwise, I'd want to make sure that we have embedded Columbia or Harvard more substantially, and then just the fact that we're talking about, well, should it be on the north or south side of Kenyon of the cycle track? I really feel like that switch should really be happening at Park Place, not like at Warder or something further along. And so just kind of want to put that out there.
I'd just like to throw out there also that while you're talking about Columbia and Harvard, I hope you're fully aware that those are the crosstown emergency vehicle routes, and that to do anything additional, they're also the main crosstown east-west routes for vehicles. So to disrupt that even further to add bike lanes is just unconscionable. So I hope that is not a serious consideration for DDOT at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. We would not do anything to impair movement of emergency vehicles in the city. And Emily, thank you for your feedback on the overall route. Appreciate it.
Okay, Commissioner Ray.
I think, sorry, I just had I forgot to put my hand down, sorry.
Not a problem. Geneva.
Yeah, a couple of things just to follow up. I just wanted to reiterate that I'm concerned about losing pedestrian space if the park and water project goes ahead. So I'm curious to see what the next presentation is on that. And then I had a question. I was wondering if it was at all considered to do a 1-lane bike lane on Kenyon and then a 1-way going the other way on like Irving or one of the other streets so that you wouldn't lose so much parking on Kenyon.
No, we have not looked into that. We've been focused just on Kenyon at this time, but I'll add that to my notes with sort of the general routing concerns, and we'll see if there's any other way we can do this.
Just because since Kenyon's a 1-way, it seems like the traffic flow with the bikes would go together if they were both going in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then lastly, the corner of Warder and Kenyon, since the bike installation has become a source of enraged drivers, I would say, sort of slamming up, almost rear-ending each other at that intersection, honking constantly. Today I saw somebody like purposefully almost rear-end somebody because they wanted to like get them to move faster out of that intersection. And I'm seeing that every day. I'm curious what the plans are for fixing that light sinking issue and just that issue in that corner in general.
Okay, so sorry, that we're Kenyon and Warder, and is this an issue with like the through traffic heading westbound, or is this an issue with the turning? Or is it both?
It's both. Yeah, both.
Okay. All right. Well, the hope is that we're going to introduce this dedicated right turn, which is going to have the effect of like segregating that traffic, so people will sort, and that will mitigate the congestion in the intersection and get things moving faster. Now, what the traffic engineers want me to say right now is that we really got to maintain the rush hour restricted parking to keep that condition moving, nicely through the rush hour peaks. So I do feel like I have to sort of, say that as well. But, by creating this dedicated right turn, we think we can address, and with the signal changes along with that, we think we can address that issue there.
Great. Were the signal changes suggested there to sync up the bike and the cars? Was that on that intersection as well?
So actually, the great thing about Warder and Kenyon is we don't have to, because there isn't that same conflict. Because of the 1-way northbound, there's no conflict between the traffic turning north and the bikes which are to the south. So we don't need to have a special signal phase for that.
Okay, but right now I think that the bike lane and the street light are different times. So the cars seem to be getting confused when they get to the intersection and they see the bike lane turn green, and then they kind of go ahead as if it's their turn, but then it's not. So everyone gets confused.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay, yes. Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Thank you.
Okay, and then last comment, Lindsay, did you already share your hands just up?
No, I actually had another question.
Okay, thank you. And then
Yeah.
Commissioner Ray, I saw your written response, and I saw Commissioner Bass and George going back and forth too. So if there are any last comments or questions, I would say share them now.
So I do have a question. Do we have data on how much the bike lane on Kenyon is actually being used? Because I'm curious if it's actually been worth it, because I know from a traffic perspective and a parking perspective, the 400 block has been quite unpleasant since it was installed. But is it making a difference for people that cycle? I don't see a lot of traffic there, but I'm not constantly looking out my front window to see it. And I know there are still cyclists on the north side on the sidewalk every morning because I have to pull my dog or myself out of their way. So is it actually being used? Do we know? Is there data on that?
We do not have data at this time, unfortunately, because the pandemic. Doing in-person counting is just not something we can do right now. We will definitely collect that data as soon as we can. We do expect it to have pretty robust utilization. The information we've gotten on the Irving Street, the first phase of this project, that lane is being used pretty heavily. And then this is sort of the continuation of that. So we expect to see that the numbers there are pretty good, but we unfortunately we can't get those yet. But hopefully, later this year, if all things go well, or sometime next year.
So does that mean that you'll have that data before you can make a final decision on whether or not to keep that bike lane? Because it seems like you'd want to know what a metric for success is, and what is that metric?
Certainly, though. I mean, I don't think we're not planning on removing any of the bike lanes that we built so far. But we're definitely interested in evaluating their impacts and learning everything we can. But in terms of do we have a threshold for we need 10 people on bikes per day per hour or anything like that? We don't have criteria like that for particular facilities. Is that sorry, go ahead.
I just had one final question, and that was how many parking spaces are there on Kenyon between Water and Georgia, if you have that data?
About 30.
No, that's the amount that you're talking about removing. I'm talking about the amount of total spaces that are currently available to residents.
So our RPP parking on the south side is 30 spaces, and then rush hour restricted on the north side is an additional 28 spaces, but we're going to be converting that to RPP in this proposal. So, so total on the 500, 600 block of Kenyon, both sides of the street, RPP and rush hour restricted, all of that taken together, 58.
Okay. So 58 people are going to have to, 28 people are going to have to skirmish for 58 parking spaces. I'm just trying to be clear in my mind how that's going to work.
Well, I mean, because the rush hour restriction, half those people were going to have to leave at some point during the day anyway. So
that's totally different than at night. That's totally different.
Okay, in that case, yes. In the evening, it will be 58 looking for 30 or so spots.
For 28
that is correct.
spots.
Yes.
That's so awful. Okay, thank you. So awful.
So you're talking about seniors having to navigate through all of that.
I don't have any specific demographic data for that block, but potentially, yes.
Most of them do live there. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Commissioner Bass, did you want to share what you wrote?
I can, but I know this is the discussion on the 400 block of Kenyon with the bike lane. I would, as to whether or not it's heavily used right now, I would imagine that it would be used more heavily. One, when we're not in a pandemic. Two, if the north-south bike lanes on Park Place and Water become protected lanes, and then especially if the Kenyon, I'll call it a hyphen, but if it actually connects to something that goes somewhere, like if it's extended, I mean, I wouldn't think that. Well, I would think that all of those things would increase its use. So, I think it's worth looking at, and I would really love to see some metrics, but I do think use would go up with the other improvements we've been discussing.
Yeah, that sounds totally reasonable to me. Well, if there's
I would think you'd still have to prove it, though.
Yeah, we can. Well, I want to just take a moment to thank everybody for spending this time discussing this. This went longer than I thought it would, but I think we had a really good discussion here. And just, I want to recognize that these are, difficult issues because we have a finite amount of space between the curb, and all of it is being used right now. And trying to change how we use it, is very difficult in a lot of different things. There's always going to be trade-offs. So just, I appreciate people taking the time out of their evening to give their input into this process. We are not done by any means. I'm going to be back. with more information. You guys have given me just a lot of, very valuable feedback to take back to the rest of the team. So want to thank you for that. And I think we should plan tentatively on a follow-up conversation April or May around then. But I will be in touch with more details soon.
Aaron, real quick, one last question. If people have ideas or comments after they've had a chance to think about this, how should we collect that information and how should we get it to you?
That's a great question. I think probably the best way to do it is if, and I hate to put you on the spot, Commissioner, but if folks could email their ANC commissioner, and then those could be passed on to me. As some of you are no doubt aware, we have a regulation at DDOT. I'm not really supposed to directly communicate with residents. All of that has to go through our community engagement division. But that does sort of slow the process down. So I know that people have asked me questions via email and I've not really been able to respond directly to them. I have to give my answer to a community engagement specialist who can then turn around and give that information to the community, which can be a little frustrating for all of us. So probably, passing your questions to your ANC commissioner is the best way to keep everything organized and to have the most, how do I say this, to have the quickest communication loop between my agency and the ANC. So that would be my recommendation. But if folks do want to email me directly, I just pass that to the community engagement folks and they get back to you when they can.
Aaron, is there a way where you can post the plans on DDOT's website so that we can easily float them around to community members so that you can get the feedback?
Ooh, I really wish I could say yes to that. That would make a ton of sense. But unfortunately, doing updates to our website is a real process. Sorry, is there?
Commissioner Brown, we can post those on our website on the Transportation Committee website. I honestly didn't have time to do it today, so I will make sure that's up so you can share them broadly.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to act as a funnel as well for comments if needed.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Aaron and George for being here. Everyone, I know it's late. I do want to, or Aaron and George, feel free to stick around or leave if you need. I do know we had a few other agenda items I'm not going to take too long on, but I really do want to flag them. I also wanted, before that, I wanted to highlight Tim, who has reached out through the graces of Commissioner Christine Miller as well, connected us. I'm going to be working with Tim on a outreach project to the community, similar to what we're seeing with the livability study, but collecting hot spots and issues throughout the neighborhood that I know we receive one-off emails about, but we want to make sure that we pass along those concerns to DDOT and to council and aggregate them. So I'll be working with Tim on that project, maybe also an educational webinar as well. If you're interested in these types of things, please reach out to us. I appreciate Tim's time. There are a number of other public engagement meetings coming up over the next month that were just announced over the last day or two. The Near Northwest Safety Mobility Study is having a public meeting on the February 16th. I'll send around these links. I think I already, they're in the agenda, but I'll send them around separately and I'll also put them in the ANC newsletter. Please share. It's a great time for giving your initial thoughts. There is an interactive map, which I really want to highlight. They're collecting roadway and sidewalk safety concerns. So you place a pin and you describe what the issue is. The link's in the agenda, but like I said, I'm going to share that around. There's also a citizens advisory committee that will need an ANC commissioner to sit on to attend their meetings. So I'm going to discuss that in a little bit more detail with the other commissioners as well to see who would like to serve on that. There are also Move DC updates throughout 2021 happening. The next public meetings that were just scheduled are February 9th and 11th. One's in the evening, one is at night. The website's still pending for that, but those will also be in English and Spanish. And then right before this meeting, I saw that there's a 16th Street bus lane project update happening on Monday, February 8th. I'm not sure of a Spanish translation meeting happening, but I did include the RSVP and way to join in with the WebEx webinar. So I'm going to reach out to those teams to see if they have any presentation materials that they can share in advance, and I'll put those on the ANC Commission website as well, along with the slides that Aaron shared tonight. But if you're able to attend, please do. I'll try to cover those, and I might reach out to a few other commissioners to see if they're able to cover, so I don't have to be on all of them as well to take notes and ask questions. But was there any interest in attending those from the commissioners on the call now, or from community members? I know I'm also putting you on the spot.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're saying, are we attending the livability study meeting? Because yes, I will be at one of those.
Wonderful.
Yes, and I had already RSVP'd as well.
Wonderful, thank you. I'll make sure to send out another note with all of those to the commission more broadly. But it'll be really great to have some representation on those calls as well. So, is there anything else folks wanted to raise right now? No? Well, then I do want to thank you all for being here. I know I have 3 pages of notes that I took. As Commissioner Brown brought up, please do email concerns or ideas to her. Feel free to email them to me. I'm happy to start aggregating those, and keep an eye on the Google group for other updates regarding some of the projects I discussed we're working on with Tim. So thank you all, and I hope to see you soon.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Take care.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.